So first you're going to take your rectangle square and you're going to fold it in half with your lines showing on the outside. So this is the wrong side of your fabric. This is the right side of your fabric. So where your print is more visible, you're going to put your right sides together. So you're going to fold it right in half and match up your edges and crease the folded line. Now, if you want, you can just sew it like this, or this is where you can add your pin. So you can put a pin on one side just to hold it closed, and then a pin on the other side, just like so. And then you're ready to start sewing. So we're going to get started first by stitching your first line. Now I have already pre-threaded your needle and put a knot in the end from the card, but it's also very easy to do yourself. So we're going to start by stitching at your folded line. So you can either start at this line or this line, it doesn't matter, just on your folded edge here is what you want to do. And you just want to create your first stitch, and then so there's your knot at one end, at the other side, and come through the other side. Now this is called a running stitch, is when you go in and out. So you're going to start by going a few little bits away from this edge. You're going to go in, poke through the bottom, through the other side, the back side, and so don't go all the way through, just go up and down. And this is called a running stitch, and this is just a slightly quicker way of stitching. You don't have to do it this way. You can certainly just go in and out, in and out. There's nothing wrong with that as well. So when you come to your edge, I'm just going to end my running stitch, so just go all the way through. And usually when you pull your thread through, I hold on to this piece just so it doesn't tangle, because my thread has a tendency to tangle, like always. And unfortunately that's not much we can do about that. That's what thread has a tendency to do. And then just give it a tug and see if your pin comes out, that's okay, because you do have a line already sewn, so it is secure. Now you've got to your edge here at the corner. You're just going to come up on this line now and do the same until you reach this portion. So you're just going to go again. You can just do in and out, or you can do a running stitch. It's entirely up to you. So I'm going to bring my thread up facing me. So there is my end here. So what I'm going to do, because I don't want to go all the way across, because I need somewhere to turn this so it's right side. You see the fabric on the right side, and also that we can stuff it. So we do need a hole, basically, is what we're creating. So I'm just going to knot this off. There's a couple ways that you can knot this off. You can just create a knot and cut it. I prefer to thread it back in my previous stitches and then knot it off. So just find a previous stitch and just thread it through, just like weaving. Just go thread it through. I usually do a couple stitches, just like that. And then I'm gonna do that, thread that through that same one again, and then just go through leave a little circle, and then just put my needle through that circle. And then I'm just going to tighten it close, just like that. And that knots off. Like I said, that's just one way of knotting. That's just my way of knotting. You can knot however you like, just as long as that thread is secure and it's not gonna come undone. And then you're just gonna snip that off, just like that. So then you're gonna repeat for this side, and you're gonna do the exact same thing. Okay, so I have stitched my other side, but I haven't knotted it off yet, because what we're gonna do, we're going to thread it through the 2 layers of material so we can close it up at the end when we're done. So what you're going to do, again, this is optional. You can knot it off and then just stitch it closed just at the end. That's up to you. This is how I prefer to do it. You're going to take, so we've ended up with our stitch on top through both layers of material. Now you're going to put it back through near that same hole, but you're only going to go through 1 layer of material. So you're going to come up between the 2 layers of material just like that. So you have your needle in between, and then just bring it all the way up. And we're going to keep that thread. We're not going to cut it. If you find it's too long to work with, you can certainly cut off a little bit of it. I would leave at least, I don't know, 7 inches or so, 6 inches, depending on, you just need enough to stitch this closed. So now we have put our thread through, and we're going to start to clip the corners and churn. So we clip the corners. That just means taking your scissors. That just means taking your scissors and clipping the edges of your corners. Make sure not to cut your thread, and just a little bit off each of your 4 corners. And this just makes sure that you don't have any bulk when you go and turn it, and it's easier to turn. It just makes it nicer. It's not a necessary step by any means. But it just makes it slightly easier to work with and nicer. So you just see there's a cut corners on each of those 4 sides. And now we're going to turn it. So you're going to take your opening that we made, and your thread is still here attached, and you're just going to turn it. So just push your material in, so you start to see your right side come through. And at this point, it does help to have, you can use your scissors, you can use a pencil or a pen, just something that we can use to poke those corners out. Fingers don't always work, I find. They're not quite skinny enough to use, but you can poke them out as much as you can, as best you can. And then, like I said, just use, if you're using scissors, just watch they don't poke all the way out, but you just want to poke your corners out. So you got nice pokey corners. So we're just going to do one side and then repeat for, again, all 4 corners. And there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there is, we're almost done. We have our pillow turned right side out. Our thread is still attached, so we can close it. But now you're ready to stuff your pillow. So this part is very easy. I try to make this as painless as possible. What you're going to do is you're going to take your bag of stuffing, and you're just going to I take a little bit at a time, and I'm going to stuff it into each of these corners, just so then they poke out nicely. You don't need a lot, but I have given you lots of stuffing just in case. So I've poked this corner and I've poked this corner, so you can see they are slightly puffy. And then I'm going to do the same with these 2 corners now. And you can put in as much or as little stuffing as you prefer. If you want, you can just put in catnip too. That's entirely fine. It just won't be a poofy cushion. But it's entirely what you want to do. So now I've got a poof here and a poof here, nothing in the middle. What I usually do is I put a little bit of stuffing so it sits here in the bottom, and then I'm going to add some catnip. So I'm just going to put a little bit more stuffing in here, just like that. So I've got puffing, puffing, puffy, and then nothing here. And then I'm going to take my little bag of catnip. You can add all of it. You can add some of it. It depends. You don't even have to add any of it if your cat isn't really enjoy catnip. My guys love it, so I tend to be very generous with it. But again, that's entirely up to you. Just beware, it does go all over the place, and your kitties may attack you if they smell it. So we're just going to poke that in, spread it around in there so it stays, and then you're going to add some more stuffing. And again, you can fill it out as much as you like. You can make it a really puffy cushion, you can make it a slender cushion. It's entirely up to you and what you think your cat will like. So it's almost there. I'm going to add a little bit more. A little bit. I like puffy cushions, so, and my boys like puffy cushions too. So I think that's good. So we've got a nice puffy cushion, we've got our opening here, and we've got our thread still attached. So now we're gonna sew it closed. Okay, so there's a couple ways of doing this sewing it closed. You can just take your needle and thread and then just, you know, stitch back and forth. That's it. That's fine. That's entirely up to you. I am going to show you how I do it. And again, this is just this is personal preference. It's up to you, however your skills and your preference dictate how you want to close your pillow. But basically what I do is called an invisible stitch. And it's called this because you can't see your stitching. And again, this is just personal preference. But what we're gonna do, so we have our thread here at the very edge, and we have, because our material was folded, it has creased here on both sides. Sorry, I'm gonna try and keep this in focus here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our needle and we're gonna find that top folded edge, and we're gonna poke it through so we have it here. And we're gonna pull it all the way through, and then we're gonna continue on and find our folded edge on the opposite side. So we've pulled it through just on that folded edge. We haven't gone through the front or the back. It's just at that top edge there. And then we're gonna go, this is a fold here as well. So we're gonna find that fold and come up and do the same thing. Now when we pull it closed, you see our stitches disappear. And we're just going to keep continuing, so just move from side to side, going along that folded edge. And I'm going to go do a few stitches but not pull it closed so you can see. And sometimes it can be a little tricky to find where that folded edge is. This side sometimes does pull out more, but that's okay. Somewhere in there. Again, you don't have to do it this way. If you want, you can just go back and forth and to close your pillow that way. Your kitties really probably don't care as long as they get their catnip, right? So I am just gonna do one more stitch. Whoops. Pull that over. And then I will show you how I end off my thread. So again, we see our stitches here. If I give it a tug, it's gonna close. Nice and neat. It doesn't matter how, give it some force. It will close, and you can see we have a nice line there. I'm not quite done here, so I am gonna do a few more stitches. Sometimes the material cooperates and sometimes it does not, but that's okay. We make it cooperate. And sometimes you do get these little bumpy hills. That's okay. You can always turn your pillow around and then work backwards again, especially if you don't think your stitching is strong enough. That's okay. You can stitch you can stitch however you like. I'm gonna do that, give it a little tug, and I think I'm gonna call that done. So that is stitched closed, and I'm gonna end off my thread. So what I do when I end off my thread, it is still here in one of those fold lines. I'm gonna take my thread in one hand, my needle in the other, and I'm going to just go around. My needles goes around my thread a couple times, 3 or 4 times, and then I'm going to poke it in between those 2 pieces of fabric. Even if you pulled it tight, you can probably find a space. Pull it in, throw the weight in, hold this piece tight in your hand because you need that to be tight, and you'll see it all at the top of your needle right here will be all wrapped around. See if you can see it there, right there. And then, but make sure you hold it tight. And then we're gonna poke it out anywhere in your material, all the way through, and just give it a tug. And it will knot inside. And just snip that thread off. And there is your very own Kitty Friends Catnip Pillow. Congratulations! I hope you enjoyed.